everyone. My name is Ravi Ranjan, and on behalf of My Place, I welcome all of you to this very, very interesting webinar. Today, it's going to be a very interesting session where we have a wonderful panel in front of you. We would take some time so that a lot of people who are joining in can settle down. We'll start the event in next 1 to 1.5 minutes. Once again, thank you so much for taking out time on your Sunday evening to come for this event. And I'm sure this panel of experts, is going to answer all the questions which you have on commercial real estate. So just stay tuned with us and we'll start the event shortly. In the meanwhile, it would be great to understand our audience. It would, so before I start the event, let me quickly talk about the platform. Today, we're using the webinar mode by Zoom, which is a little different from Zoom meeting, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. The only difference here is that you would not be able to broadcast your audio or video during the event. However, you would be able to see all the panelists, listen to the conversation, and we understand you might want to ask some question. And that is why please feel free to use the Q&A on your Zoom dashboard to put down your questions, and we'll make sure that we go through all the questions and get the answers from the expert of the panel. Before we start the event, I would request all the participants to maybe spend a couple of seconds just to write down your name and the city you're joining from. Feel free to use the Q&A on your dashboard. So we'll wait for a few seconds to see where people are joining in from today or across the country. All right, we have Mr. Rohit Jain joining in from Delhi. Hello, Rohit, welcome. We have Mr. Vijit Das from Kolkata. Wow, wonderful. We have Mr. Pankaj Vasudeva from Delhi, Ms. Kavita Kathait from Noida. We have Mr. Sanjeev Gupta CCRE from New Delhi. Wow, that's a wonderful, diverse audience we have coming in from across the country. And also, I would like to share some interesting stats. We have Salma from Bangalore joining in, Krishna Jhala from Mumbai. We have Mr. Debendra Sahu from Noida. We have Mr. Sudhanshu Rastrogi from Lucknow. We have Mr. Dinesh Mittu from Gurgaon. So My Place started this series of webinar to bring national and international thought leaders to talk about various different topics. For the third event, which we are hosting today, we have received registrations from across the country. More than 59 cities residents have been joining in. We have received more than 790 registrations, and interestingly, we have received more than 11 lakh views on social media. That talks about how interesting the session is going to be today, and we'll start in 30 more seconds from now. Welcome Gagan Uppal from Chandigarh, Hira Bagra from Kolkata. So this is how we are going to take the session ahead. I would first take maybe a minute or two to talk about our wonderful panel which we have today, introducing them, and then I would request our expert panel to spend maybe 2 to 3 minutes talking about your individual journey, because all three of you are industrial leaders and veterans in your respective industry. During this 2 to 3 minutes, feel free to talk about your personal journey, talk about what inspired you to come to this vertical. And then after we're done with the introduction, we would go and we have some very interesting questions which we have collected from various participants across the country. We would take those questions. Towards the end of the session, and also during the middle of the session, we would also take some questions live. Again, when you would like to ask the question, feel free to use the Q&A on your Zoom dashboard to ask your questions. Without any further ado, I would like to once again welcome all the participants on behalf of My Place. My name is Ravi Ranjan, and I'm going to be the host for this wonderful event today. I would like to first introduce our expert for the day, Ms. Khair Nissa. Ms. Nissa is board member at World Trade Center Association. She's also head of the World Trade Center India Services. She's a member of UPNRI Investment Cell, Gift City. She has been the brain behind developing India's first Center of Excellence in Electronics. Ms. Nissa, we are really glad to have you with us today. Good evening and welcome to the event.
Good evening, Ravi, and thank you so much for this opportunity. It's great to be on this platform.
Wonderful, thanks a lot. We have with us Mr. C.S. Sam Chopra. Mr. Chopra is an angel investor, a serial entrepreneur, and he's currently the founder and chairman of Remax India, a global name in real estate, commercial real estate across the world. Mr. Chopra has also been a former chairman, President and Vice President at following companies: Association of Property Professionals, National Association of Realtors India, Association of Certified Realtors of India. Mr. Chopra brings a diverse experience into commercial real estate, and he's a name to reckon with commercial real estate. Mr. Chopra, glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you very much.
We have with us Mr. Vinayak Nath. Mr. Nath is a serial entrepreneur, angel investor, a TEDx speaker, and a force behind entrepreneurship ecosystem across India, with an emphasis on Uttar Pradesh. Mr. Nath is founder and CEO at My Place Coworking, a leading co-working space in North India, with plan to go national. Mr. Nath is also jury at the National Entrepreneurship Awards by Government of India. He's a state mentor for Government of Uttar Pradesh. He's also the managing partner for Venture Catalyst, one of the largest angel network in the country. Mr. Nath, welcome to the event.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you so much. I would now like to request Ms. Nissa to take 2 to 3 minutes to kindly talk about your journey. You have a wonderful, experience both, while handling World Trade Center, and prior to that, you have been part of some of the biggest commercial real estate projects in the country. We would love to hear from you, Ms. Nissa.
Thanks, Ravi. I think, to talk about me, I've always been embarrassed to talk about me, but nonetheless, I belong to Kashmir. My journey has been from Kashmir, and thanks to the militancy, I had to leave India and get my education from US and from UK. And then I got settled in various countries in Southeast Asia, like Singapore and Malaysia, then moved on to Dubai. So got myself an experience of Southeast Asia, got myself an experience in Middle East, and I've worked in various sectors in the international markets, like in retail, in education, and in various management jobs, profiles. Ultimately, I came back to India, and the reason for my coming to India was my marriage and settling down in India. And ever since I've been in India, since 2007, I've been into real estate and various facets of real estate. Ultimately, in 2011, I got associated with World Trade Center Association, New York, and have been instrumental in working and developing the network of the World Trade Center Association in India. The way we looked at the World Trade Center, it's a combination of real estate and services. So, but it's beyond real estate. And in India, the responsibility that has been given to me has largely been from a perspective not only just developing the real estate, but also working very, very closely with government initiatives so that the services aspects gets built in. So it's like a body and a soul. It's a combination of a body and a soul. So any World Trade Center you would see is not just real estate. It has a soul of its own, and that soul is through services. And we do substantially a lot in terms of facilitating trade and investment in the country. That means we work with the central bodies like Invest India, and we work on initiatives of the government like Make in India, Digital India, Startup India. I'm a great advocate of women entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship itself. As such, in World Trade Center, the services, the basic services model is access to markets, access to money, and access to mentors. And how do we do that? I mean, a very basic principle of our services in the World Trade Center is the market network. We provide the global access to the local network through the in 330 World Trade Centers in 120 countries that we have. And similarly, the international companies who are looking at connects in India, we provide them with the local access. So we collaborate extensively with the Indian organizations and trade organizations and chambers of commerce. We strongly believe that duplication is not the way. It is collaboration which is going to be the future, and we need to be collaborators rather than duplicators. So in India, the access to market is provided through the collaborations that we have, and globally through the World Trade Center network. The access to money is through our in-house NBFC, which largely looks at funding and investments at a lot of startup companies which are at the acceleration stage. Uh, Access to mentors is through our startup initiative or through our accelerator, which is eSparks, which is a joint venture with Entrepreneurial Sparks, a UK-based accelerator, one of the largest UK-based accelerator. And in addition, we facilitate a lot of companies which are coming into India, which are looking at India. We promote India on a global platform, largely from an investment perspective. And that means we work very, very closely with the government of India and the state governments. In India, we work on, the World Trade Center is working on a hub and spoke model. We are largely on the DMIC corridor and the AKDIC corridor, that is the Amritsar, Calcutta, Delhi corridor, industrial corridor, as well as the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, which have between these two corridors, we have 48 industrial hubs coming up or 75 smart cities coming up. So we're very, very strategically placed wherein we can facilitate investment, both international as well as in India. We are working very, very closely on building Indian champions. Pre-COVID, we were actually working and we thought that while we are looking at Make in India, which is facilitating investment from India, we should also be looking at developing Indian champions. So these are some of the initiatives of the World Trade Center and of the World Trade Center India Services. That is about my journey in India.
I would say we would have to do maybe another dedicated webinar, a couple of hours, to bring in all.
I know I do a lot. I'm usually very busy, yes, because sometimes people do ask me, am I the government? And I'm like, no, I'm not a government. I'm a not-for-profit organization. I'm a privately owned not-for-profit organization, very, very patriotic and very, very focused on India, on developing India, bringing in investments into India and also building Indian champions.
Truly inspiring. I would say, the way we have seen these beautiful landscapes coming up across Gurgaon, right to Pune, as I was talking to you earlier about the World Trade Center right outside Eon IT Park and similar projects. I think in next few years, India, on its mission to be one of the biggest nation in the world to promote infrastructure, I think World Trade Center is playing.
I must highlight it, even though I know I'm actually taking time from the others, but I must highlight that World Trade Center Noida is world's largest World Trade Center, and it's also one of the unique World Trade Centers in the entire global network, because it is not just office spaces, but it is it's an integrated industrial park with office spaces, residential, hospitality, and industrial included in it. It's a very, very unique model that in the entire World Trade Center network that we are working on. Whenever you would think of World Trade Center, you would think of steel and glass infrastructure and office spaces, but World Trade Center Noida is actually creating a pilot for the rest of the world.
Wonderful. I think that's one more thing which we can be proud of. Thank you so much, Ms. Nissa, for that wonderful introduction. Mr. CA Sam Chopra, Mr. Chopra, I would like to request to kindly take a couple of minutes to talk about your this really long journey in real estate, commercial real estate. Now that you're leading REMAX in India, I'm sure all the participants have so much to learn from you, Mr. Chopra.
Thank you very much, Ravi, for having me here, and of course, Vinayak and Khair for being wonderful participants. And thank you all others who are joining us in this session. Essentially, well, I'm a CA, therefore the prefix CA is Sam Chopra. Samir is my real name, SAMIR. And I also have another prefix, which I'm very proud of, which is Realtor. So we write RR for that. That's the prefix we use for Realtors. Realtors, as you know, are not developers. Khair, you know that obviously. We are actually as real estate consultants, professional brokers of a different level altogether. I started my journey as far as, of course, I wear various hats. I run I'm part of a accounting firm also, which is, so therefore I'm a chartered accountant practicing. I have a BPO and a call center business, which moved over a period to an incubator and an accelerator, then moved into co-working, and now into something very interesting, which I will talk about a little later, which is hyper-global working. The name of the company is FlexiWorks. So I'll talk about that as well. But then I moved into food because my parental business is in food. So my grandparents started a small restaurant which became very famous in India called the Embassy in Connaught Place, and then Qualities and other restaurants and ice cream and all of that. But we also currently do, I'm a director in a company that sells burgers. So Carl's Jr. is the name of the burger chain, is the third or the fourth largest burger chain in the world. And I'm a substantial investor in that. But most importantly, what we're talking about today and whatever I've learned in this trade of real estate, I started my journey with a course that I did at Naritco. So very grateful that I did that. During the course, I met up with people from this old establishment called ACRI, Association of Certified Realtors of India, where I, over a period of time, rose to be a vice president. I'm a former vice president of that great institution. I also happened to join a local association from Delhi, which has now become huge, which is called the Association of Property Professionals, Delhi NCR, where again I started as vice president and grew to be their president, and then I was kindly nominated as chairman until a few years ago. So I've had great journeys with local associations, and these local associations, bring in all real estate brokers, and very proud to be a real estate broker or a real estate consultant professional, whatever you may call it. We in turn moved to join the membership of the National Association of Realtors India, NAR India, which is a global body with the Indian chapter, so as to say, of a global body called National Association of Realtors, which is the world's largest trade body, incidentally, based out of the US. And that, of course, gave me a lot of learning about the trade. I've always, whichever business I've been in, whether it's real estate, food, whether it's professional consultancy, whether it's call centers, BPOs, I've always joined the local association of that industry. When I say local, it's hyper-local in India, in your city, Delhi or Gurgaon, as well as all India, to learn, because I believe you collaborate to succeed. And that is where I eventually became the president of NAR India, and I'm on their advisory board today. Moving forward, what gives me maximum commercial business, all this is philanthropic, but what gives me maximum commercial benefit, of course, is my alma mater, which is really Remax. So I brought in Remax into India in 2009. I started talking to them in 2008, November, December. In fact, I always say very proudly that we are the children of recession. We learned austerity drive. We learned what true entrepreneurship was, because we brought in a concept into India, which here to nobody knew. When I said that, I've got a franchise which I want to sell you for real estate, people used to laugh at me because they say, how can you franchise real estate? And lo and behold, today, over a period of time, with, of course, addition of my dear partner, who's the managing director of the firm. I'm the chairman and founder, and he's the managing director, Gaurav Maria, who also runs Franchise India. So when he joined me, collectively, we've brought it to over 200 plus offices across the country. We have 1,500 to 2,000 agents in these offices, and we're in over 60 cities across the country. Having said that, globally, this is an absolute powerhouse, because we have over 150,000 agents all across the world in about 8,000 plus offices. And we're in 105 plus countries and regions across the globe. So it's a huge enterprise. The great thing is that during this lockdown, also, we have, whether it is at the agent level or the broker level or the global regional level. When I say global regions, I'm talking about people in different countries, which are right from the US to Italy to China to Vietnam to Korea. Every place, all of us congregate on a weekly basis, we have global RO meetings where we discuss various things, how we should continue to work. And I must say that we've done phenomenal sales, and we've really closely interacted with our brokers and agents who are we're very proud of. We call them our family. We work with them very closely to keep them motivated, to ensure that all their issues are resolved. Of course, you can't please everybody across the globe, but you try your best. And I think we are a very well-knit family which is running the business today. That's my bit, Ravi. Thank you.
Wonderful, Mr. Chopra.
And thank you for having us here.
Thank you so much. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Vinayak Nath to bring two powerhouses together for this wonderful panel. I think the audience is truly in for a delight today. With that, I would like to now bring in Mr. Vinayak Nath. If you can spend a couple of minutes talking about your journey, of being part of this wonderful ecosystem. Mr. Nath.
Thanks, Ravi, for sharing the time. I will be very quick in doing it so that we can get on with the session. I'm managing partner at Indian Angel Network and the HR partner there, where I also met you, Ravi. And this journey of startup investment started and around the same time. From there to a couple of selling of successful startups, making world's biggest training company, to making the world's biggest space company and selling off them successfully, to of course, making Indian economy, globally, which is what venture capitalists we do, and my place. And I also have a beer company there in Europe. So we are one of the major players in making beer. So something near to what Sam does in food, but nothing much of that.
That's the reason I've become Vinayak's friend, actually, the beer.
That is wonderful, Mr. Nath. Actually, Mr. Chopra, I was in the US and I saw that Carl's Jr. is actually more popular than McDonald's in the US, and I'm sure we'll see that coming up in India as well.
Thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you.
Mr. Nath, would you like to continue?
Yeah, and apart from that, I am also on the certain Government of India committees in the skill and the entrepreneurship ministry, making new laws and new things for entrepreneurship. And I can't tell much, but then there is something amazing coming through. We are just writing a new law. So, or 50,000 is what the earlier number was. We have changed that to 5 lakh. We would be certainly making 5 lakh plus people in a 5,000 crore program. That's all I can tell you as of now. But then this is going to be a new law that we are writing in, me and the secretary. And hopefully we should be doing it by September around. So there is some new push that we are looking at. And this is going to be something wherein probably as Khair and Sam are also a part of this journey. So we will also like to, welcome them to do something with the structure. Apart from that, I'm also the state mentor for a few chief ministers of the country, UP, MP, Goa. There are the states which I'm primarily working with, Arunachal Pradesh. So some things in the law. And apart from that, I was the youngest planning commission member in the country at the age of 30. So that was an experience to have. That's pretty much offered me nothing much as illustrious.
Wonderful. So that's wonderful, Mr. Nath. I think audience has so much to learn from you, both from the point of view of planning and execution, which is what you're doing with the Angel Network. I would like to start very quickly with our discussion today. We have our audience, which is primarily real estate developers, real estate owners, and experts from the commercial real estate ecosystem from across the country. First question, government has announced lockdown 5, which is also known as unlock 1.0. Offices are going to start from tomorrow onwards. Some states are going to start from 8th of June, which means that there has to be some changes which need to be brought in to accommodate social distancing, sanitization, hygiene, and so much and so forth. I would like to ask you, what will be the new norm of working during post-lockdown, during unlock 1, 2, 3 and onwards? Ms. Nissa.
I would look at this opening up wherein people are going to be looking at week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. They're actually going to be rosters. There are going to be a lot of processes which are going to be set up. Some processes are already being set up by companies. Social distancing, sanitization, temperature control, all of these are already, at the top of the mind. For corporates, it's very, very essential that the health of their workers is a top priority. As such, there is going to be a lot that these corporates are going to be looking at from the design aspect of their offices, the space aspect of the offices, and even processes. I don't think we are going to be operating, the offices at least would be operating at their optimal level. We, for one, we have a preferred partner for World Trade Center, which is Viridian. It's already been planned that they are a company of 500 people, multiple offices in Jasola and their headquarters and their corporate offices, but they are opening up very slowly, wherein 25% of their staff would be coming in week one, then 33% would be coming in week two, and then progressively they are going to be moving on. At the same time, no outside people would be allowed. Then in the week 3 and week 4, that is what is being planned, that only by appointment, strictly by appointment, no walk-ins are going to be allowed. So these processes would start taking place. Already the government has laid out some policies for retail, for supermarkets, for shopping malls. So while the government is making those changes and we have to adhere to them, so would the individuals be doing. I think we would have to look at June lockdown 5.0, wherein we are going to be testing waters. We are going to be finding our own processes and systems. And then hopefully, I am very optimistic by September, we should be seeing things actually still at an optimal level happening. Till September, I do not think that we would be very, very optimally operational. In phases, yes. That's how I look at it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nissa. That's a wonderful insight. I would like to ask this next question to Mr. Chopra.
If I may,
Sure.
I have a little to add on this also. One of the things that I'm doing, like I mentioned, we have a hyper-local working model. Now, in that, what we've done is we've set up a property management product, which has been made over the last 2 months while we were under lockdown. That is a seat management solution. So essentially what's interesting is what we've realized is that everybody has 3 S's to deal with right now. Whether you're in hospitals, whether you're in offices, whether you're in restaurants or any place, you need 3 S's. The 3 S's are, first one is site. So you need to know which hospital, which office, etc. to go to. So if you have multiple offices, like I go to my Gurgaon offices, I've got 2 offices in Gurgaon, 1 in Connaught Place, 1 in Faridabad. So when I go, I have a situation where I can choose a seat. The second, the site. So that is the first S. The second is that I want to know which seat will be allocated to me or to my colleagues or my team members when I go there. Because right now you're going to be working on not a fixed seat, essentially. So I get the seat. I could choose the seat that I want, and I could choose the team, the nearness of the team to the seat also. And the third S is slot. So now, because you're going to have really literally any time working, not only anywhere working, but anytime working, you're also going to have allocation of early morning. So you could start the work at 5 in the morning, or you could end at 2 in the morning as well. So you would have 6 hours, 4 hours, staggered working, etc. Now to do all that, we've set up a property management product, which actually does seat management, where the HR or the team lead or the employee himself on his app is called FlexiWorks. So on his app, he can actually choose the site that he wants to go, the seat that he wants, and the slot that he wants, and book the seat accordingly, book the place accordingly. And everybody in the office knows who is where, and you can book conference room seating, invite people for it, etc., etc. I believe that will become the new norm, because this thing, unfortunately, the vaccination or vaccine is the king really in this whole business. Till the vaccine doesn't come, people are going to be scared, and therefore this continuity of distancing, physical distancing at least, will be required. And of course, the Arogya Setu, if once you merge that with the app, because we're picking up the APIs of this also. Then you can get to know through Arogya Setu only where, in which locality the person is, or next door to your house. But within the building, how do you get to know who was sitting next to whom during the in the cafeteria break, in the meeting room, or in your seat? This app helps you do that as well.
Wonderful, Mr. Chopra. That was helpful. Next question. Before I ask the next question, while I'm one of the most optimistic person I know in my friend circle, however, I would, based on my personal research, I would say that even when we get the vaccine, it's going to take a while before everyone can get vaccinated, looking at the population, which means that at least for the next year or so, this is the new normal.
Ravi, I will tell you something. I would somehow agree with you that, when we are looking at coming back to normal, and lockdown 5.0 is a first step towards that. But we have a long way to go. And I do see its effect and impact, at least for a minimum 2 years. I'll tell you one thing, like I was actually wanting to travel back home to Kashmir to meet my parents. And the process of getting the COVID test done, and because there's a new regulation in Kashmir which has come out with that is I can actually have my test done. And then at the airport, I just have to show my test that I'm negative, and then, get home quarantined for a day or two, because again, they're going to do my test there. And then till they get my test, I would be home quarantined. But the entire process of getting the test done here in Delhi is so tedious, that I have actually given up on traveling. And no, really, seriously, I mean, we have to make things accessible, not difficult. And what happens with this is that you're making it a privilege, getting this test done on a private level as a privilege. It is not supposed to be a privilege. It is supposed to be available and accessible to everyone. That is the fundamental right of our people. Just like the government had actually thought of the lockdown, similarly is the case with the tests that require to be done. While we are talking about the vaccine, forget about the vaccine, the test in itself is a privilege right now.
Sure, certainly understand. Thank you so much. Mr. Chopra, my next question to you very quickly. What are the, you represent one of the largest real estate network in the country. You have various agents, various sites which are maybe under construction, maybe just about to be handed over, but the construction has been stopped for some time. What do you see the new norms or the new business models? Because some projects might require a collaborative approach, because I'm not sure how comfortable banks would be, at least for the next couple of months, to maybe finance the remaining projects. If they're already financed, wonderful. If not, would you like to propose some new models for our audience today who would like to maybe start new projects or finish the projects which were midway? Mr. Chopra.
So the point is, I'm firstly in the real estate selling space, not in the developing space. So I can only give recommendations and suggestions to the developers whose products we sell. But there are two parts to it. One is, how do you sell it? And then what do you sell? My belief is in the new normal, of course, and we'll talk about it in more detail as we go along, I'm sure. But even whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, whether it's malls, whether it's restaurants, every business is going to change, because unfortunately, this pandemic, whether you see the movie Contagion, or you hear Bill Gates' old speech and so on and so forth, you know that this is not a one-time affair, that you get the vaccine and it's over and done with. Another pandemic may come in, something else may happen. You are only removing whatever strains have come in from whichever country, from whichever city, whether lab or an animal or whatever it may be. That's controversial. But eventually, you're only addressing one micron initiator. There could be billions of such that may come over a period of time. If we don't learn from this mistake, we'll never learn. So the issue is, do we have a permanent new normal, or is this a one-time, 2 years, we'll be fine and we'll go back to normal? We're never going to go back to normal, because if nothing else, we're scared of what to do. So I believe, firstly, we have now, each one of us, whether we like it or not, COVID has become our chief digital and transformation officer. So this is the new CDTOs, Chief Digital and Transformation Officer, because the COVID is making you go digital like crazy. Whether you're a real estate broker, whether you're a real estate agent, or you're a developer. And the second is the transformation bit, because each one of us wants to go into a complete metamorphosis of what we're doing. Whatever we wanted to do in 10 years digitally or on the transformation pedal, we are doing it instead of in 10 years, probably in 10 months. This is the real, so each one of us is becoming minimalistic. Each one of us is adapting what the millennials were doing. And therefore, whether it comes to physical distancing, which is what they should have called it in the first place, or the social distancing, or now the digital nearness, whatever you might call it, this is the reality of the future. We will definitely start using so much of digitization in, whether it's AI is going to be huge, whether it's machine learning, it's going to be huge, whether it is blockchain. You'd be surprised when we talk about work from home. I'll give you some idea of what all changes I believe are going to take place. But there's going to be so much of micro supervision of people who are working from home or working from out of office or working from anywhere or working from at any time. That is essentially is the future, and that I believe is the new normal. Again, in residential, commercial, etc., look at it this way. Your homes, everybody, whether you're an individual or you're a couple, if you're both working, you need two places to work from. If I'm sitting in this room right now, then for sure, I'm speaking a little louder. I am disturbing the people in my home. I need a place. The millennials don't have a desk at home. They don't have workspaces. All furniture interior decorators weren't doing that. So that's the new normal. Residences are going to change. You could be in a joint family. You could be a couple, a working couple, or you could be an individual, or you could be in a chamri with 5 other friends. This is going to change. Accommodation, paying guest. What if you're in paying guest accommodation and you have another partner with you? The same way the offices are going to completely change, which we'll discuss later. The malls are going to change. The restaurants are going to change because of physical, social distancing and contamination that's going to lead to this.
Certainly. Thank you so much.
Add here, I would like to add to what Sam has said and what you were actually asking, because I represent a real estate owner, developer as well, which is Viridian, which is one of the preferred partners of World Trade Center. See, COVID has actually made us realize a number of things, not just one thing. One most important lesson that COVID has actually taught us is change. Change is constant. We all know it, but now we're realizing it more so, that change is constant. Secondly, it's giving us other lessons, like in adversities also, there are a lot of opportunities. And this change is in COVID, this change is much more, has had much more impact because it has affected livelihoods, it has affected lives, it has affected the economy, it has affected people, it has affected companies, it has affected everything. Every walk of life has got affected because of this pandemic. Companies are looking at the health of their employees. Earlier, like there are few organizations or many organizations for whom human capital is of prime importance. I mean, they consider their employees as assets or human capitals. There are many, like the medium size or the small medium enterprises, for whom the survival of the business is so important that employees do not become a priority. But one thing we realize, whether it is real estate or whether it is any other business, humans became a priority. That's one. As such, if you look at the corporates, the designs and the requirements of the office spaces, the densities which had come down pre-COVID, the densities, in ITs and BPOs, we saw that there was a time when the per square feet of a workstation was 110, and now it has slowly come down to even to 23 square feet. There were some business centers which were, which would range between 23 to 35. I mean, they would talk about 72, but they had actually come down, because and the density of the office spaces had increased. We are going to see change in that. We are going to see change in design. We're going to see as such a change in space. We're going to see a change in processes because work from home has come about and we've become more digital. We're not averse. In India, the culture, even for me for that matter, I would say, I would also prefer the face-to-face interaction rather than a digital. Even, I use a lot of MS Team for my organization. And we have this tendency of putting the camera off. And I always keep on poking my team members, put your camera on, put your camera on. I want to see you. I want to see your expression. I want to see how you're talking. For me, it's very essential. The face-to-face interaction, that's a part of our culture. Let's not forget that. That's a part of our culture.
We would be able to take some of more your thoughts into the next question.
No, I have to tell you, real estate, you talked about real estate. So from that perspective, construction is up for change. See, COVID has brought in change, and that change is largely in the sale, when it's in construction, it's in selling and leasing. It is post-operative as well. There is going to be a change. How you're going to be managing your finances, the variable cost models that need to be put in place, the agility and the flexibility of a developer, of a real estate developer is going to be the key. Cash is the king. Irrespective of what sector you are, cash is the king. Building up local capacities is the king. That is where the new normal is moving towards localization. The new model is building capacities. The new normal post-COVID is the variable models, irrespective of any sector, especially real estate, whether it's retail, whether it's industrial, whether it's warehousing, those models need to be put in place. Whether it's construction with your vendors, with your suppliers, everywhere.
Sorry to interrupt you here, but
it's such a wide topic. I can't help it.
There's so much we would be able to take it here, but thanks a lot for your deep insights. Mr. Nath, I would like to bring you in here, taking a cue from Mr. Chopra and Ms. Nissa. Change is the only constant, and we have to live in the new normal. Talking about change, there was a time when, when you are building a startup, you need to either work from your garage. Unfortunately, India does not have a lot of garages like Silicon Valley. So you might have to go to one of your friend's house, just rent an apartment. But then a new concept came in co-working spaces. You represent one of the largest co-working spaces in the country. And why before COVID, it was the phenomena, the shared economy was wonderful. Co-working spaces, no doubt, has changed the way startups and corporates look at, very nice offices where they can just focus on the work. They don't need to worry about the other aspect. What would be the new co-working model? How would technology change co-working and make it as efficient as it was earlier? Because now you have to keep in factor the social distancing norms. Please share your thoughts about that.
Thanks, Ravi. Just quickly to share a few thoughts. The first thing is, as it was already mentioned, the space has changed. So yes, the co-working norm in India was around 34 square feet per person. That's what people were building. And we were doing around 51 at that time. We are now doing 75. And we work and co-work, and these bigger brands are now trying to build in a model of 60 to 90. And we are already doing 75. See, the first thing everybody forgot, as very rightly Khair mentioned, was people are the most important reason of why you are in business. It's not the money, it's not the machinery, it's not the everything else, it's just the human life. That was the first important thing. And what technology is supposed to do, as Sam rightly mentioned, that what FlexiWork would be doing is enabling those human resources to have more outreach to programs. And that's what we at My Place are doing. And probably we are talking to Sam about something integrating with FlexiWork into our systems also. Having said that, there are few things which have changed. In fact, we have just launched something new, which is that we have started saying that co-working from your own home. And that sounds interesting because a lot of people say, how can that be possible? Simple example. A lot of people do not have an ergonomic chair or a internet or a right table or a right device to just work from home just the way they were working from office. So we just provide that. There is a study by psychologists across the globe that if you're not working for 2 to 3 hours in 4 days a week with people around you, your productivity goes down by 70%. And that's a scientific fact. Humans are social animal. We are not supposed to live in silos and work at home, and that will actually make it better. Yes, collaborative working will enhance more. In fact, this is the best time for co-working, and that's the reason we are very bullish and aggressive, and we're planning another 50 centers across the country in the next 18 months, and we have already started acquiring, and we have just acquired 4 more centers. So this is where we are actually acquiring more. This is the best time. When a regression or a depression comes in market, the first rule of economy says that you should acquire more, build more assets, which will in long term, 8 years to 10 years, will actually cope up for you the next session, next depression, and next problem you have. I made the best out of my stock market investments in 2008 November, but everything till date is giving me the numbers. So this is the best time to be there. Okay, there is a new norm that now the corporate houses are also asking people to not work from home or work from office or work in collaborative, but trying to figure out what to do. The first challenge, people do not have a good internet speed at home. A lot of people forgot to do that. They were just very happy to have a high internet at office, but they didn't want to bring the office work back home. So they were never having that. In this COVID, that became a huge challenge. We are also solving that. Think machines can be a process, but then it's very difficult to have a think machine at home. It's not that easy. So how do you do that? It's a very expensive device. It's a very expensive structure that you need to build in to do that. So that is also that we are doing. Apart from that, the first and the last important part, the human life has changed to evolve to a new way of co-working. People will not go to an office area. They'll not go to that 30 kilometers or 3 hours of journey. The new norm would be you have a good local office, which is like 10 minutes walk from your home. You don't need to have a public commute, and you can have a world-class space near to your home. That's going to be the new norm. People will like to have a hub and spoke model. That's what we are building now. So there will be a big center in the city, which will have a larger office space and have smaller 50, 60 seater offices, which people can actually plug in, work with, and have more number of people working from home, just walking up to the office and walking back home, which is the important point that all the co-workings and people need to build as of today. And that's what we are trying to build in the hub and scope of a co-working space. And which I believe all the realtors and the developers and the sellers will be able to help us with in acquiring more and also building more. But this, just imagine a suburban area is not going to walk in or drive in from Bombay or from Delhi or from bigger markets, a 2-hour drive or maybe a metro station drive or a public conveyance drive, because they don't want to have people around them. So what do? You just walk in and walk out. And the best example, what Khair already mentioned, that they are building ecosystems like that, where you have a school or a college or a working space, a religious space to worship, everything in one place and along with the residential. That is going to be the necessity, not the norm. And there is no new. This is going to be the actual norm. There is no new norms left in the world. It's health and life. If you live, you survive, everything is good. So the new norm is to live. The new norm is no more to work.
If you have life, you have livelihood.
Exactly.
So
if you survive, you work, you live, you work. The work live has changed to live to work.
Live to work, right.
Right.
That's the only difference.
I'd like to add a little bit to what Vinayak has said. Essentially, the hub and spoke model that you've spoken about, very well elucidated, and that's something which we at FlexiWorks are also doing. And I, love to see how we can actually, now that we're talking, we should see how we should work together.
I must add that even the World Trade Center has a hub and spoke model for, for extensive reach out.
We're getting into partnership right on Zoom. What can be better than that? So let me give you my concept, what we've done. Essentially, what we're saying is that we don't want to be a co-working space specifically. We want to be a hyper local workplace, which is an office near the home. So essentially, you're working not from home, but working from near home. In your you're a neighborhood cafe. So what we've done is we said the style is not of an office. it is of a cafe. A cafe, imagine a restaurant which does not have a kitchen, a restaurant which only has seating, and a pantry which you would have normally in a 2,000 square foot office. So if you have a 2,000, 3,000 square foot office, you have a small pantry which has three basic things like, you have an induction oven, you have a refrigeration, and you have a single sink, not even triple sink. Now with this, your cost of that location becomes very, very low. It's location agnostic. So it could be on the first floor, second floor, ground floor, it doesn't matter. So it's a Starbucks without the back of the house or the middle of the house. It is not in a prime retail space. It is at a place which is any floor. So labor, you do not need 20 people to run it. You need only 2 people to man the whole place. So labor cost goes down. Your rentals are really low. You don't have any back of the house. So you don't take 30% of the space for restauranting, for the kitchen, etc. The entire place is only seating. And the intent is you could walk to that place. So literally walk to work, walk to your neighborhood cafe, work from there. If you're staying in a joint family, if you're staying alone or you're staying in a chamri, etc., how do you go out? And you could have people in your office who are staying nearby, so you collaborate with them. That there is no food cost, there's no inventory. So this is a mix of a restaurant, a co-working space, etc. I believe at FlexiWorks, of course, we're launching this, but I believe this probably will become the new norm, where or the norm, as Vinayak said, there's nothing called new about it now. That probably will become the norm for the future.
Thank you so much.
I'll just quickly add something to it, Ravi. This is something of a real-time experience. A lot of people who I know and I've been asking me, when are you opening your co-working this city or that city? One reason they come out with is their spouses, male or female, their spouses are not very happy around them at home that they are working and they're not working at home. So they are supposed to do something for the home, some for the kitchen, something for the house, not the office work. So actually, a lot of them actually are trying to walk out that I need to work for work. And majority of the young startups have the same challenge. Yeah, calling me up and telling me, sir, my mom is telling me, beta ghar mein hi ho to kuch kaam bhi kar lo.
So Vinayak, Vinayak, I want to tell you this, that therefore the new terminology is like ASAP. You say as soon as possible. ASAP has become after sweeping and pocha. or end of days, end of dishwashing. So it's not, the reality is that all of us are being heckled at home for not working. Itna hi kaam karte the. I mean, then, literally you say you come back home really tired, sweaty, etc. after a day's work. You're appreciated because of only probably the travel time, because the rest of the things they're doing are the same.
Certainly. My next question is very, very important. And for this question, I need help from all 3 of you. If you can spend 30 seconds answering this question. I would like to start first with Khair, Nissa. Miss Nissa. I used
Call me Khair. That's easier. Call me Khair.
I used to travel at least 20 days a month pre-lockdown. In fact, on 9th of March, I was in Pondicherry. Then I came home for Holi, and then I stayed back here. I'm sure you have been traveling. Just share the number of days you travel in a month.
25 days.
25 days. Mr. Nath.
You know it, Ravi. It's actually that I'm home only to give the suitcase A and take the suitcase B. So I'm actually like 27 days.
I have 2 suitcases packed. One, when I come back and I leave. I think all the guards in, the security guards at the Delhi T3 and T1 probably recognize me.
Sure.
It has happened to me that now the flight attendants have and the pilots have started saying, sir, are you actually going back or are you coming in?
Coming back, yeah. I've had instances like that.
So I have the pleasure of reducing my travel from about 20-25 days a month to only a few days a month, because my partner does all the hard work of traveling. I also don't go to any of my 4 offices. I prefer going to Starbucks in GK2 in Delhi, which is my neighborhood cafe. And that's where this FlexiWorks idea came from also. So I spent about 4 to 5 hours there, meeting people, ideating, sitting by myself, sipping coffee and working.
Sure, certainly. Thank you so much for the responses. The reason why I asked this question, I'm sure all of us, including the participants, we all have that scenario where we had one 30-minute meeting in Mumbai, and we took a flight 4 o'clock in the morning, went to Bombay, spent 2 hours in the traffic for the 30-minute meeting and come back. I'm going to share some stats with you. Twitter has announced that their employees can work from home forever. They don't need to come to office. Google has announced similar, not forever, but for a long time. Facebook has announced for the next 3 years, staff does not need to come back to office. TCS in India has announced that they're going to reduce their office dependency to 70%. This is going to be, I would say, a little challenging scenario for the real estate segment. Khair, what would be your take onto that? Is it just that companies are saying during this period, or would you say that all of us were working too hard? We were spending so much time traveling, going to offices, spending 3 hours in Bangalore traffic and 2 hours in Delhi traffic. Do you see people would prefer, as Vinayak said, a hub and spoke model where even if they need to go to work, they would like to have a house which is not more than 10 minutes from their offices? Your take on this?
See, Ravi, we've always been moving towards work, live, play kind of setups. Mixed use developments was one of the reasons why they were coming up. In India, the concept was largely used for selling and leasing their products or projects, but it was it had really not taken up unless and until it was not a township. And one of the best examples that I have is of World Trade Center Bangalore, which is a part of a large Brigade Gateway township, wherein they have the residential, they have the hospital, they have the school, they have World Trade Center, they have the 5-star hotel, the Sheraton, as well as the Orion Mall. And that is one of the best examples that the World Trade Center has to offer in India as far as, mixed use development is concerned and work, live, play concept is concerned, townships, right? Similarly, we would see a lot of now industrial parks and mixed use developments coming forward, and the development of that coming in place. One, we were always, especially the urban India, had become lazy. Nobody wants to travel to Gurgaon and spend 1.5 hours, in travel. We were slowly moving towards that. COVID has just fast forwarded it. If you ask me, I would travel 25 days a month. I have realized that all that travel is not really essential. There is some part of the travel which I can actually now have on webinar, on Zoom or MS Team. It's not necessary for me to require, if I had to sign an MOU, I would have to travel. If I had to sign an LOI, I would have to travel. Would you believe during lockdown and during this time, I have signed, during the lockdown, I have signed 22 LOIs digitally, mudra, using mudra. It was not necessary for me to travel. Earlier, I would have to travel for each and every LOI to be signed or lease deed to be signed. But right now, because of the knowledge and because of the ease of digital and the acceptance of digital on both sides, has ensured that we are going to be looking at these changes. One in travel, in travel from city to city, also in local commuting, and there is going to be a lot of, like Sam said, cafes. Not necessarily going to office. Work from home could probably become the new trend. These things would happen, but they would also change. We change somewhere, and we are still going to change again. You understand? I mean, right now the trend is that work from home. We're feeling a lot of trend that yes, this is it. But this is in 1.5 years time, you would see that we would be back to where we had come from.
I'm personally not a fan of work from home at all.
I am not. We're not disciplined. We're not disciplined. Everybody actually expects you to be there, available 24/7. We would have to build those norms. But then again, let's understand that this lockdown was forced on us. We were not prepared for it. So we were very grateful after 3 or 4 days of staying at home. We were very grateful for the work that was coming to us.
If I may say something, the lockdown, of course, while it's forced onto us, there are pros and cons of working from home and working and challenges, of course, on working from home. As far as working from home is concerned, the what you would need. So there are huge challenges also, but they can be overcome. For example, your VPN, your firewall, etc., has to be relooked into. Your internet bandwidth has to be relooked into. It. Your electricity bills are going to be increased. Your furniture fixtures have to be increased. You have masking and encryption of data, which will have to be done. You have to ensure that the cybersecurity team is available to you 24/7 from your office, because in reality you can take mundane stuff and take it to the house, but you can't take technical stuff which you have scare of espionage or hacking, etc., unless you have a very strong cyber security in your organization. Having said that, your home work life is going to get completely blurred, because if you're working from home, you're expected to pay the bijli ka bill also, to pay the newspaper wala and the milk wala who will ring the bell also, because you're at home. So your credence of work sort of goes down. Your definitely your household expenses are going to go up. Your workspace is going to get cramped, because we've got used to the luxury. Your air conditioning is on in your office all the time. If it goes to 25 degrees, see how many of us complain. But at home you might not keep it on all the time, because your expenses are going to go up. Lack of privacy. The privacy has gone out. Bandwidth fluctuation. You got to pay much more for bandwidth. So there are a lot of issues which will come in, and in reality, the role that you play is going to get slivered up. The only way to contain it is that I can't give my entire business model to somebody. So I have to give, even the computer I give him is going to be a black box. He's going to have a vanilla laptop that he's going to be using, because if I give him anything else, there's going to be a problem. He can share data can be hacked, etc. So even work from anywhere, work from at any time guidelines will have to be created to strictly follow. So really, co-working, work from home, work from anywhere, anytime will all coexist. I believe work from home will be the least out of the lot, though the most convenient. The next will probably be work from anywhere and work at any time. And finally, the highest spread will go towards the co-working space. So this is the range. And of course, you work from office, which you are in any case. But remember one thing, that your capital purchases are going to get limited. And if I may say, whether it's real estate sale or real estate leasing, from a B2C model, this is very important, from a B2C model, we are going to move to a B2B2C model, because in reality, developers are not going to be able to sell to individuals who will take 500 square feet and then aggregate it and give 10,000 square feet to somebody. There will be people, this is again a new norm, where people will come in and will be the aggregators themselves. And those are the guys who will then lease it out or sell it to others. That slivering will happen at the second level and not at the developer level anymore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chopra.
But Sam, wasn't pre-COVID, we're seeing that it was becoming an aggregator's world.
Absolutely.
It was largely, we would see that aggregators was the norm.
An acceleration that is happening. Like I said, 10 years is going to happen in 10 months. Whatever we've decided to do, see, we were lazy to do it because it was uncomfortable as an environment. Now we've got a catalyst called COVID, which is accelerating the whole thing.
Another thing, like from work from home, Sam did point out that data security, privacy, outages, there are a lot of downsides and there are also upsides. But one downside definitely for work from home that I've realized is the lack of human interaction.
Yeah.
And I love my water cooler meetings. Trust me. I think the kind of, the connect that I have with my colleagues, the kind of innovative ideas that the young people actually come up with, that is something that I think is something that I am losing out on. And that is where most of the innovative ideas do come out. I'm not a fan of work from home, largely from this perspective. That you know that the connects that I have with my colleagues is lost, and the best connects that I make with my colleagues are over a cup of coffee, over
True.
the water cooler.
Yeah.
I have a slight disappointment. I don't know why we kept the session for 1 hour. It should be for at least two and a half hours. That's what I believe now. I'm going to rework on the timing. Anyways, we have a lot of questions coming in from our audience from across the world. I would like to take them one by one quickly. And if I can request Khair, Sam, and Vinayak, maybe if you can summarize the answers in between 40 to 60 seconds, that'll be really helpful. I would like to start with the first question. This question is coming in from from Vicky Kalra. Vicky is from Dubai. This question is for Sam. What are the opportunities for real estate developers to seek private debt investors? How do they find opportunistic investors who are still out there looking for a good investment deal in India? Sam.
So what you're saying is, I want you to rephrase the question.
Sure.
Are you saying that we're talking about where do we get debt from, or is
I will
he talking about the fact that he has debt available, and how do we approach developers who want debt?
I will read the question again. What are the opportunities for the real estate developers to seek private debt investment in India?
Is it for Dubai? Is it specifically
No.
for Dubai, or is it generally? It's a generic question.
So the question is, what I got stumped by his question. Vicky's a dear friend, so he's played the googly on me. So what you're basically, Khair, I think what he's saying is that what are the opportunities for developers to get debt in India? Now, I honestly don't know. This is a question I'll throw to you. You're the developer. Is it easy to get debt? Or do we get debt from overseas? Current situation today, I don't think debt is easy to come by.
It is not easy to come by. The government, the banks, the nationalized banks are not giving loans or any, they're not recognizing real estate as a sector as such. Private equity funds, yes. Since World Trade Center is a global brand, so the credibility of a developer, the credibility of the brand that is associated. So those are the ways that probably, one could get private debt. But it depends on what are the returns that they're looking at. So far, if you've looked at
I can probably budge in to tell you this, that as an investor, I would love to. Ticket size doesn't matter. What matters is that a debt return ratio is much more convenient for an investor if it's against a land deal, depending on what the value of the land and the wide kind of the raise that you're looking at. But here's the point, that if you're going to make something out of that land, it's going to be much more valuable. But I'm only going to value the land. So it's a very bad way of actually asking a loan shark, I'll call that, rather than a debt glorified word, because industry doesn't give you the safety. The government norms doesn't give you the net of safety. So you will have individuals, maybe 100, 200 crore kind of an investor will also be an individual or a personal level of investment or family office investments, which are not very secured way of investments. So even the paperwork in long term, Sam, I've seen haven't worked very well. With a friend of mine has just done a 230 crore raise for his Goa business, and he's already having troubles in just getting the investor out. He's paid some money and he's still into it. So it's very messy.
Vinayak, we did see, like we've seen Blackstone, the private equity investors like Blackstone and Everstone, who have invested in real estate, in commercial real estates. But they have put conditions like REIT, the build, or IPOs have to be, or REIT ready projects, or ready to use, or ready to move in projects have been the ones that they have largely invested in. What you're talking about is land. So for a real estate developer, land is of little consequence as far as the developed is concerned.
If I may say one thing, that there are two opportunities today. One is to buy NPA. Okay, so the NPA would normally be bought through equity, not by debt, because obviously there's no ability to pay interest or principal in that case. So that's an opportunity. The second is on the concept. Now, on the concept side, when real estate itself is so fluid, we're still building concepts, and every day there's a new learning. There's, till the vaccine comes, you're doing everything by trial and error. So in the trial and error phase, you're not sure what's going to work unless there's a eureka moment which says that I have this base, whether it's real estate, whether it's land, whether it's a building which has been built, it's for housing, but now I'll convert it into, I'll go for a CLU and get the property changed into commercial, or it was a hotel property, but I convert it into a hospital because that's the future. So those things will happen only when the state of fluid goes, or the guy sees a eureka moment and says, okay, this is the thing to buy right now. I think, to my mind, debt is going to be a lot lesser to get. And if somebody's getting in an overseas fund, he'll probably get it much easier. But people would be reluctant to take debt today unless they're dying right now as a business, because the debt payment capacity itself is questionable.
Thanks a lot, Khair, Vinayak, and Sam, for your thoughts. The next question is pretty interesting for Vinayak. First of all, the participant is saying thanks for organizing this session. I'm sure you are liking it. That's wonderful. The question is, as organizations won't be working at 100% occupancy, do we see them moving on to relatively smaller spaces with cheaper rents? Also, would this change bring in opportunities for co-working spaces to shift to managed working spaces primarily occupied exclusively by large corporate brands? Vinayak.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'll share you a statistical fact by the Economic Survey Government of India, which is the last year's survey because we haven't got this year's survey. Less than 1%, near to 1% of the white collar used to work from home. And beyond that, everything else was here. We have a lot of talking about work from home. We have just forgotten a simple point. If you're not in the IT space, then what do? What do you work from home? So you need your office. You actually need to shift out. If you're a salesman,
if you're running a restaurant, you can't work from home.
Exactly. If you are into manufacturing, you can't work from home. If you are a salesman, you can't work from home. There's so many other businesses which are construction industry, labor from the construction industry, even a supervisor for that matter, or manager in that industry might be a design.
Processes of a corporate, even for an IT, all processes cannot be work from home.
Exactly. So that is why this norm of working from home will of course increase, and by 10 to 12, rather 15% to a max. IT companies which are saying that, I am 100% sure TCS will go wrong in that. This is a guaranteed in writing statement as a professional advising to the statement. In less than a year's time, they'll come back to it because they'll have a financial loss. What is happening now is certain HR persons are being overridden by the financial people, telling them to work from home is coming cheaper to us. Why don't you keep on doing the same? This will actually result in lesser result, which will be a lateral part. Let them be. But apart from this, there are two things to start with. First is the norms which are going to work in long run are going to be certain activities which are going to coincide with the business flow, money cash flow for that company. If that requires an office, yes, the office space will be still there. If doesn't require so, then nobody will ask you to come to office. That's the only difference a corporate or any company will, for that matter, do. Now, for the co-working space, this does not mean loss of business. It means that the corporate houses, which will actually have empty offices, they can actually acquire them also to convert into co-working spaces. So it's actually a disguised, blessing in disguise. Apart from this, the second and the last part, which I like to mention here before the other panelists will probably throw some light on this, is the new concept which I was just writing certain points here, the tier 2 towns, the towns which were yet not explored and have commercial spaces will actually become the new destination for workspace. People, companies, we had a call with Cushman Wakefield a few days ago, and they are shifting a 80 people multinational company, unicorn, startup unicorn with a multi-billion-dollar turnover, not a valuation, but a turnover, actually from Delhi to Lucknow. Why? Because they know that their people do not want to work from that office, which is having so much of commute distance travel time and then have so much of people around them. They want to be in a space wherein they can have an international flight. They can have a very good connectivity of flying across the country, but be in a remote location. And that is also happening in Hyderabad. That is also happening in a Vizag. That is also happening in a, not a Pune or a Bombay or a Bangalore, but also happening in a Nagpur. So these towns were ready to move to the next level and become big, are actually going to become big because of this movement. Will the government be having more airports help? Yes, of course. But beyond that part, even if that doesn't happen, people will love to travel on their own. And that is going to be actually, when I say that norm, the new norm this time would be actually people like to travel from their own cars as to the maximum that they can, because they would like to avoid public space. So that's what I
Vinayak,
see.
you really actually, I agree with you. You know what, we are actually also getting a lot of queries are from businesses for business continuity. You know, this COVID has actually made some of the corporates realize it's not about consolidation, it's about business continuity. If, you know, largely business continuity, and data centers are so much in demand, largely because of this. Though, I mean, they're looking at consolidation, the data centers and the warehouses are looking at a lot of consolidation, but business continuity is the major focus for them. So very right, Vinayak, that you know, that business continuity is, if they're looking at Lucknow, they're also looking at tier 3, tier 2 cities. Initially, my fear actually was that the change in the commercial real estate, it might have an impact on tier 3 cities or tier 2 cities, because most of the real estate which is in demand is the one which has location. You know, for real estate, it's just like in the movies, it's entertainment. In real estate, it's location. You know, so but because of the business continuity, we are seeing that a lot of demand for tier 2, tier 3 cities is coming up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I have the next question for you, Khair. This question is coming from Pankaj Vasudeva. It's a two-part question. I'm actually adding the second part. Do you see the maintenance charges for commercial buildings coming down since there would be less tenants in buildings? On the second side, buildings need to employ more people to keep them sanitized, do these periodical sanitation, fumigation. How do you see that?
Pankaj, you said, right?
Pankaj Vasudeva, yes.
Many thanks for your question. But let me actually reiterate that maintenance is never, even though it's a cost and an expense, but it is there for a reason. It is a service being provided, and a service being not provided just for housekeeping, but also for keeping the building operational. Now, I think the demand on the maintenance is going to be huge, because we are going to be looking at not just the sanitization, the processes of maintaining the sanitization, the fumigation, regular fumigation, because this is not just about density. Maintenance is not just about density of people. Yes, to a large extent, because the larger number of people there are, the more number of manpower is required to keep a building clean, operational. Maintenance is because of the manpower, largely we see because of the manpower, but also now there's going to be an added manpower for the for sanitization, for taking care of distancing and various other things. I think rather than the maintenance coming down, it might go up.
So let me just add a point here, Khair. It is my belief that the maintenance will not change much, because the same people in your organization, if they're well trained, there's multitasking, they would be able to do the health sanitation bit and the isolation bit and all of that. But the cost per employee, or in an office, or the cost per footfall in a mall, or the cost per guest or patron in a restaurant will go up exponentially, because the limited number of desks that you will employ, or the limited number of footfall in a mall that you will bring in, or the limited number of seats that you will use in a restaurant, because those will go down, but these costs will remain the same.
Sam, I think see, in maintenance, there are two major factors. You know, there are many, but major components is manpower and consumables. Yeah. Your manpower you might be able to control, but your consumable cost is going to increase.
Exactly, because nothing will.
So because of that, you know, your maintenance might increase. I'm not saying that it is going to increase. There is a possibility that it could increase. Manpower you can still control.
True.
And have multitasking done, but consumables is something which is going to increase.
Yeah, that's a variable cost, so that will increase. But utilities, as an example, will not. Utilities will remain the same, but the cost per footfall will obviously change.
Yeah. Pankaj, I hope I've answered you.
Yes, yes, definitely. We have the next question from Vijay C. This question is, the first is for Sam and second is for Khair. I'll start with the first question for Sam. How do you look at commercial property market in the next 3 to 6 months?
From sales perspective or lease perspective?
I was just going to say that. I was going to answer it, split it in two. See, as far as purchase is concerned, and I have a developer here, so I have to tread very carefully. But I feel that I still say that from a B2C perspective, things are going to move to B2B2C, which means that there will be a lot of aggregators, co-working spaces, and others that will come up to buy those places as well as lease those places, mostly lease spaces. And if the price is right, of course, individuals will also come in. But this is not a 3-month perspective. This is probably a 9-month to a year perspective. So it's long term. We can't say things will change in 3 months. Honestly, right now the spirits are so down that whether it's automobiles or it is commercial spaces or so many other things, people are putting off things by 3 to 6 months, maybe 9 months. But having said that, the opportunity on the lease front, because people have to go to work, the gig economy is going to increase. Look at the unemployment. 25% of our workforce is going to get unemployed eventually. It's much more right now. But when 25% of the people move out, especially the white-collared guys who are going to move out, what are they going to do if there are no jobs available? They'll become entrepreneurs. They'll join the gig economy. The gig economy needs space. So space is not going to be reduced. And in fact, now a co-working space, which is using, say, 26 or 35 square feet, is going to use 75 square feet. So you'll need more space. So imagine double the space because with the same manpower, and then people coming out. So more or less, whatever the space balance is and the supply demand equilibrium and shortfall is, that will get maintained. That's not going to change. That's the future for me for the next 3 months, if I may say.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Khair, the question for you. Okay, I think that question. I'm going to ask the next question.
But can I add to Sam? So what Sam has said, I have this idea, habit of poking and answering.
You should. We should have that.
I'm very bad about that. I'm so sorry. But, I'm very positive about the real estate. We are contributing 5% to the GDP. There have been, pessimistically, last year in 2019, leasing was somewhere around 39 million square feet. This year, it's expected to drop down, largely because there are going to be delays in the supply. The supply is going to be less. But at the same time, we're seeing a lot of other opportunities opening up. There are businesses which are expected to move from China into India. India is very aggressively looking out for that business. There is going to be an increase in the consumption of office space, varied office spaces in India. So we might balance out what we had leased out last year, 39 million square feet, more or less. Maybe we're going to meet up and match up with something similar, or probably less by 1% or 2%. Nonetheless, very, very optimistic. But when it comes to sale, it largely depends on, when we are selling real estate, we are dependent on the Indian consumers or the NRIs or Indian citizens. So it would largely depend on how the economy is faring. If the NRIs are still having their jobs, if they lose jobs, then then it would have an impact. So consumption would largely depend on how much employment and unemployment there is going to be, both globally as well as nationally. It would depend on that. And as far as leasing is concerned, the faster the American and the Chinese economy revives, the the chances of leasing are in high probability there. You know, the numbers of 39 million, probably it might even go up depending upon how fast the American and the global economy actually revives. That's a fact, and we cannot deny that. We might be very, very optimistic, though I am very optimistic, but then these are factors that we need to keep in mind.
Thanks a lot, Khair. I have the next question coming in from Vinayak. 24 office
You
time.
forgot my question before I poked into Sam's question.
I was bringing in that question very quickly.
Forfeited your question for taking over so much of digital time here.
I'm going to bring that question quickly. Vinayak, the question is from Mandar Narvane. 24-hour office time with shift duties with reduced people. Can it be a new normal for co-working? Also, the second part is from Kumaraswamy. Co-working spaces with shift-wise will have some effect due to the sharing system. Vinayak, your thoughts on this?
Okay, so there are two things which has already happened. We were already in this model of shift working for certain companies, and before the government announced the lockdown, we were already having clients like that. Having said so, there have been two different changes. What has happened to the 30% and the 40% kind of rules that came in. Thankfully, we were already in a large space. We always believed that people should not be claustrophobic sitting together and jumbling up like animals to work. And we always believe that, you know, more space gives you more thoughts, openness, and you can work better. So we didn't have the challenge of space management vis-a-vis to other places will have. India, there is a norm. Let's talk WeWork. So WeWork has a 60 square feet norm. We have a 51 square feet norm. Apart from these, any player, I won't name them, it doesn't look good to shaming them, but none of them have above 40. There are people with less than 32 also. So having said that, the only challenge that is going to change is that people who are wanting to send their employees have changed. The people as employees do not want to come. So if you want them to come, they are ready to leave a job. Or at the same time, certain people are saying that I want to work, but I want to work in certain these ways. So that shift norm has already been in place. That 24-hour opening office is already in place. And majority of the co-working, the larger structured co-working like us, are working on a 24-hour shift pattern. So that's not actually a challenge. What was the second question, Ravi?
Sure, I'm just going to bring in the second question.
You don't get a second question.
I mean, it was on the similar line. So Vinayak, I'm actually going to skip to this and get the next question for Khair. All right, this is an interesting question. Coming in from Mr. Wadhwa. Allow me just 1 second. Yeah. In the time of lockdown and after lockdown, how do you see the retail market in terms of the high street and malls, changing? Three part. Part one, in terms of previous rents payable by tenants. Part two, how do you see high street and mall retail market post lockdown? And part three, how will this affect in terms of rentals once things go back to the new normal? Khair.
The retail market, what I understand, and I have been observing and I have been in discussion with a lot of brands, with the shopping malls actually closed down for a very long time. They have come to each and every developer back for renegotiation. You know, because for them, their business is dependent on the footfall. And if the footfall is less, obviously the viability of their business is under question. When it comes to previous rent, well, already there were variable models which were at play. The best of the locations were some of, like Select City Mall was on a revenue share model, whereas other Pacific Mall had a variable rental model. But and a lot of brands actually, or developers also collaborated and worked very, very closely with the retail brands to accommodate what could be done, how they could collaborate with each other and in these difficult times support each other. Like Prestige Group or Brigade Group for that matter, actually till the time there was a lockdown, like say for example, till from 1st to 13th of March, they charged them the rent, which was there. From 13th to 24th, they did not charge them rent. For the maintenance, they did charge them full maintenance. During the lockdown period, they only charged them the maintenance, which was for the basic services that was like security, the capital equipment. So they subsidized the maintenance. But there were certain developers who have not gone for renegotiation. I mean, we've really recently read newspaper. I mean, it was in the news that Nexus Malls, which has been taken over by Blackstone, the Reliance has actually taken an exit. It was partially to send a message across that, look, you need to negotiate. So, but a lot of developers and brands are working very, very closely and partnering very, very closely on the rental aspect. High street, I do not see much of change in rentals unless and until the bargaining power of the brand is not high or the landlord is not high, and depending upon the location. But footfall is definitely going to have an impact. Right now, we're all forced to go to a high street because shopping malls are not operational. A lot of footfall is on the e-commerce. I mean, I am myself doing a lot of shopping online. And I was, a while back, I was in Khan Market. But if Select City Walk would have been open, I would have been there. I would have been going to Select City Walk. So for us, we are not looking at shopping malls as just places for shopping, but also these are social outings for us. These are social centers for us, not just shopping malls for us. As far as rentals is concerned, I think there is going to be a variable cost, variable models which are going to be at play. Revenue share, minimum guarantees or revenue share, pure rentals, subsidized rentals. For 2 years, we're going to see a little bit of chaos happening. And I have been observing some brands which have been opening up. They have been opening and maintaining the social distance. Benetton has actually, all their trial rooms they have taken out their trial rooms out of each and every center of theirs. I mean, the outlet of theirs. Chroma and other centers are actually, because of the distancing, social distancing, and the limited number of people who can actually be allowed in the outlet, there's a huge rush outside the outlet. Like say, for example, I saw Chroma in Southex or near Southex. There was a huge queue outside. There was a huge queue outside Vijay Sales. While they were just starting out, so the arrangements were not there. But now that I'm seeing, they did post some pictures on the group that, the retailers group, wherein they're keeping their umbrellas, they're keeping, the benches, they're giving out water in this warm weather. So there's going to be a lot of change in retail. We're going to see a lot of mix. Some brands are going to take an exit. Some brands are going to be going to renegotiate, but renegotiation is going to be definitely be the norm.
I'd like to say a few words on this, Khair, since I am also in the F&B space, and we've got 9 locations which are, mostly in malls, some on a multi-unit or multi-brand tenanted spaces with single landlords. So there are multiple tenants over there. In all of them, my philosophy is this, that in the good days or the normal time, we always worked in most malls on an MG or revenue share, whichever is higher. And there was a huge upside available to all the malls.
Yes.
Unfortunately, what has happened is this pandemic and the uncertainty of the future has brought us to the level where we say that, we can't sustain the MG anymore. Now, what most restaurants and some associations are asking for is, please remove the MG totally, keep only the revenue share. So be a true partner, because we need you today to do that. And if you're a true partner, then right from the 13th or 23rd or whatever date is March you feel onwards, for the next year at least, if not 2 years, work with us on a revenue share only. And maybe you can say, you know what, there'll be an upside later. We want to keep it even longer. We're okay with that. But at least a bare minimum of a year or so, it should be there. And if we are doing well, you obviously get the benefit of it. But otherwise, imagine if our revenue goes to 50% and our MG, which was earlier hypothetically said 10%, 9%, but because it's an MG and the revenue's gone down, it becomes a 20-odd%. Footfall goes down further, expenses are maintained the same, we're going to start bleeding. So there's no point doing business. People will shut shop, or they will work because of social stigma and then eventually shut shop. The malls are going to have problems, the landlords are going to have problems. So this is the time to empathize with the business. And we do appreciate they may have their own loans, etc., but so do all of us. So it's a vicious circle. And probably this is the helping hand the mall needs to give.
I agree with you, Sam. I have been an advocate of partnering with the tenants. I've always advocated that, because
we're going to open things with you now in that case.
Yes, you should.
Absolutely.
That is wonderful. In the interest of time, so the session was supposed to be ending at 7 o'clock. It's almost 7:40. Still people are with us. So unfortunately, we would have to, wind up for today, but I'm sure I would request Vinayak to maybe do another session. This has been wonderful. I would request to start with Khair. If you can spend 30 to 40 seconds as closing remarks with your thoughts for all the participants today.
30 to 40 seconds for me is difficult, but anyways, I want to really, really thank you. Really a wonderful session. Ravi, you've been great. Vinayak, absolutely a great learning. And Sam, you're such a great person, honestly. I loved loved being on this panel. And I thought that I really am, this is one session which I actually want to continue ahead, not to end. Really, I'm enjoying myself so much here, because I feel that I'm amongst people who understand what is happening, who are not just throwing things for the sake of throwing things, are very honest to what they are, the advice that they are giving and the reality. They have a real reality check. And thank you so much. And I would really, really be looking forward to another session. Really, really great. And your questions were superb.
Thank you so much, Khair. With your schedule and the kind of LOIs you are signing every day, you saying that you wanted this session to continue, I think that's a feedback and validation that this was a good session. Thank you so much.
I really mean it.
Thank you so much. Sam, your thoughts, please.
Well, Khair said all of it. She took 30 into 3, so she's done justice to Vinayak and myself also. But having said that, absolutely, I endorse it. That Ravi, you've been great. Both Vinayak and Khair, it's been a pleasure spending time with you. We'd love to do such sessions, more sessions with you in time to come. And I know, we do a lot of sessions at Remax. I know that our real estate associations, all the 3 that I'm a part of, does a lot of sessions on real estate. So we'd love to, I'd love to speak to all those concerned in these 4 places and see if we can do more sessions from there also. And of course, the knowledge series, I know I've attended at least 3-4 of those at my place. They've been fantastic. Vinayak, you're not only a great speaker, you're a great anchor also, because you've done some great sessions. The episode 6 and 5 that I saw, both were fantastic, and you led the questions really well. So guys, those of you who have not got your answers, our apologies. I think it's best that Ravi picks those up. We can take them offline, talk to them. Probably you have their registrations. I'm sure you have their phone numbers and email. So let's get back to them with those. I think we should do full justice to all those people who spent whether 10 minutes or 1 hour or 1.5 hours and more with us. I'd like to thank every participant for their time, especially those close to us and who've actually taken time out of their busy schedule or their work-life balance, the life part, and spend time with us. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much, Sam. I might not look like, but I'm a big food lover. So hopefully all of us can meet together very soon once things go back to normal in Connaught Place somewhere. Vinayak, your thoughts? You're on mute.
Okay. Just to start with, I know Ravi since what 10 years now. So I know him grown, and not as an old man, but as a round man and back to fit. So I've known him all of that sizes. So yes, he is a big foodie like me. I've lost 10 kgs of weight in the lockdown. That's the only positive that has happened to the lockdown. But apart from that part, yes, it was a lovely thing in terms of learning new aspects to the whole business from Khair, from Sam. And Sam has always been, advocate of knowledge, and he's one of those people whose, humbleness always brings modesty into me. So I'm pretty sure I'm a fan of his for that part. And Khair, it has been also a equal, exhilarating pleasure to have to learn from you, to know from you. And yes, we would also like to partner something in my places too. We are opening new ones, and we can partner, and we start tomorrow morning itself.
Perfect.
And that's the whole idea of doing it. And apart from that, there is a secret which I should share that about Ravi. He is going to have a Guinness Book of Record after the lockdown. He has had more than 3,000 webinars, which I personally know, in less than 3 months. So we are killing him like anything. He's doing it like any robot, and we are using him like anything in a machine. And he knows that part morning to night, from Venture Catalyst to Indian Angel Network to Kolkata tie to Lucknow tie to Delhi. I can't express how many governments and how many systems and things. He can tell me, how many did you do today? 6 or 7?
7th.
Wow.
Wow.
And you look
Outstanding.
fresh as a daisy.
Yeah.
So I think so. You have found a new profession. You should sit at home, eat the food, and be only at webinars. That's a new profession for you.
So you're the Zoom
That's
caster now, the professional Zoom caster.
Sure.
Yeah, probably we should talk to Liu about Zoom being the best part of you, and he should have you on board. We can always go from the startup angle to him and talk to him from the Peter Thiel team. That being said, Ravi is one plug which is able to mix and match so well that it makes it so intriguing to have a discussion which was supposed to be 1 hour is now actually gone to 1 hour 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks a lot, Ravi, for sparing out the time, and this has been an absolute pleasure. He's an absolute darling. In every single time that you ask him anything, he always is an outgoing person helping people. And this time I will ask you this question, Ravi. What are your closing remarks to this session?
Sure.
Because this doesn't happen to the moderator at all.
Sure, definitely. So my personal closing remarks would be on the similar lines. So one thing which I have observed with so many people talking about it during this pandemic, one of the things which has come out very importantly, that you require 3 things in life. Number 1, you want your family to be close to you. You want good food, and you want a beautiful house. I think I'm not an expert in real estate, but I would see more people would like to shift towards single independent houses rather than apartments and complexes, because that's where you get more flexibility, and you can also play around with a home office setup, which is going to be the future, which I believe. So my closing remarks would be that, a panel like this, and with participants who join from across the country, the future might look a little challenging, but the future is very bright, because as Vinayak said, and we all have been hearing about it, that every crisis brings a whole range of opportunity. WhatsApp, Instagram, Uber, they all were built during the 2008 financial meltdown. 2020, while it might not look very nice, but I'm sure we would talk about it, that how it brought opportunity for so many spaces, including real estate. So there was a revolution in terms of green buildings. I think now we would see buildings which are more friendly, which are more accommodative, which are more social. That's what I think.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And
So
the co-working is going to become, Ravi, the co-working is going to become co-living and co-working. And that's already started. Now it will be becoming the need. There will be no more norms in the world. There will be need in the world. People have realized that part.
On behalf of My Place Co-working, I would like to thank Khair, Vinayak, and Sam for joining this session. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the participants. We would be sharing the recordings with all of you if you require. And we understand some of the questions were unanswered. Request you to kindly share with us on the same email ID. We'll try and get the answers for them. You can also contact Khair, Sam, and Vinayak on the LinkedIn, their official LinkedIn profiles, for any further question. Stay tuned for the next session. And for this session, thank you so much for joining this event on a Sunday evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.